I can't smile, Frank.
Don't ruin it.
Okay, I will call the regular session of the Oregon City Commission order for Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith. Here. Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Mayor Dan Holliday.
Here.
And Commissioner Denise McGriff is absent this evening.
Okay. If you please stand and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, she called in, but she's out of town.
So on ceremonies and proclamations, I have 19-555, proclamation celebrating Dr. John McLaughlin's 235th birthday. Looking pretty healthy for 235. So, did you guys come? Did you want to say something?
Yes.
If you do, please come forward.
Still dirt on him from digging him up. Which time?
Go ahead.
I'm John Salisbury, 1220 Madrona Drive, Oregon City.
And I'm Dr. John McLaughlin.
In reality, former Mayor Doug Neely.
We just came to invite you to Dr. McLaughlin's 235th birthday, happening October 19th. From 11 to 3, it will be a time full of celebration, of proclamations, of music, period dancing, of open houses, of special exhibits by the National Park System, because that's part of the National Park, both houses. And we just came to give you a formal hello, and somewhere around here passed out some green brochures, so you've got that right there, so you've got them, specially designed for you guys in green color. It took a while to dig him up, but he's here. Unfortunately, I have to put him back after we're all through, unless you come up with something else for him.
Sir, it's the year 1856, and I am celebrating my 72nd anniversary. The chances of me being around to the 235th, you say, are nil.
But I dug you up, sir.
I'm doing pretty good in that case.
Took 2 days to get your suit pressed.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, you're all welcome to 12 o'clock. I'll be talking about my life to that point.
Okay, thank you.
If he has energy.
So now I will read the proclamation. October 19th, 2019, Dr. John McLaughlin's 235th birthday. Whereas the year 2019 marks the 235th birth anniversary of Dr. John McLaughlin being born in Montreal, Canada on October 19th, 1784, passing away in his Oregon City home on September 3rd, 1857. And whereas Dr. John McLaughlin came to the Northwest region in 1824 as a representative of the Hudson's Bay Company and occupied the position of chief factor of Fort Vancouver, and whereas Dr. John McLaughlin needed lumber for the buildings at Fort Vancouver, for which he needed a sawmill powered by water to provide the lumber, and whereas he was directed by local Native Americans to what is known as Willamette Falls, a source of major waterfalls that would supply the needed water power, and whereas he and his men came to Willamette Falls in 1829, built a sawmill at the foot of the falls and huts to reside in, and whereas Dr. John McLaughlin saw the value of the area around and near the Willamette Falls as a place for settlement, as he platted and eventually named the settlement Oregon City, and whereas he assisted the American pioneers who journeyed out on the Oregon Trail in the 1840s against his company's wishes and made a decision to retire before he was fired for his actions. Whereas the state of Oregon, in an official resolution of 1957, gave Dr. John McLaughlin the honorary title of Father of Oregon, and whereas the McLaughlin Memorial Association was formed in 1909 for preserving the home Dr. John McLaughlin and his family built in 1845 and sharing his story. Now, therefore, I, Dan Holliday, Mayor of Oregon City, do proclaim October 19th, 2019 as Dr. John McLaughlin's 235th birthday, and along with the McLaughlin Memorial Association and the City of Oregon City and the National Park System, urge all citizens to participate in the celebration on this day in McLaughlin Park beginning at 10 a.m. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand the second day of October 2019. Okay. Thanks for coming.
One change, they had to move it to 11, sir. My apologies. Rather than 10, it should be 11.
Okay, so it's 11 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
You should apologize too, because I was not born in Montreal.
I only read.
You can't remember that.
I only read what they tell me. All right, moving on.
Thank you.
We're citizen comments. Do we have anybody?
We do.
Okay. So citizen comments are for things that are not on the agenda. Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes, and I strictly enforce that rule. So hearing that, Jeff Jones and Roger Fowler-Thias.
Come back to follow.
Okay. I seem to have lost my notes here. There they are. Me first? Well, I'm Jeff Jones, and I reside at 810 Brighton Avenue here in Oregon City. And I'm here to thank the city on behalf of the Rivercrest Neighborhood Association, thank the City Commission, Public Works, Police, and the other city departments and staff that worked with us in resolving the Creed Street viewpoint problem. And if you recall, just as a background, last February City Commission meeting, myself and others from the Rivercrest neighborhood presented to the commissioners our concerns with the then ongoing criminal activity and the high volume of traffic that was occurring at the viewpoint. Mayor Holliday directed at that time to put together a work group to implement with staff from Public Works, Parks, Police, and others to address the issue. Public Works proposed to install removable bollards and restrict the parking, no parking signs throughout this area. This was all installed in March, and I'm here to say that it was very successful. We were in fear of there were some rather despicable characters that were hanging out there, and we were worried about possible retribution. Didn't happen. Traffic's been reduced. We now see families enjoying the viewpoint where before they stayed away because they were so intimidated by the large, noisy groups. It is noted that the folks who live adjacent to the viewpoint have reported a few stragglers showing up now and again, like ignoring the no parking signs. They must not have got the memo, I guess. And it is acknowledged that some of those folks, we understand, that were hanging out there have moved elsewhere, unfortunately. Again, thanks to all the city who made this happen. Thank you, Mayor, for acting on our concerns. Frank, thanks for facilitating the group session. Also, thanks, Rachel Lyle-Smith, who listened to our concerns early on before she even had the opportunity of sitting as a commissioner. Thanks to Jim Band and his officers, particularly to Officer Brian Willard, who worked with us closely over our traffic concerns. And of course, we got to thank John Lewis for coming up with the great idea. Where'd he go?
In the back.
Oh, there he is over there. And his crew, who did a great job installing the bollards, and of course, me being a retired civil engineer, I couldn't help but do the inspection afterwards, but I didn't write up anything on it. I should have, I guess. On the bollards being temporary, the neighborhood would like a heads up if and when the city decides that they need to be removed. And that's it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Roger Fowler-Thias, resident here for the Oregon City Parks Foundation, who will be holding another Ivy event in Waterboard Park this coming Saturday, October 26th, 9 to 12 p.m. This would also be our first year joining in with Portland's No Ivy League, who also has partner sites in Milwaukee, Vancouver, and Gresham. The No Ivy League will help us provide more outreach, flyers, and supplies if need be. We're very happy to join in this event with them. As you are aware, our city is inundated with English ivy, covering hundreds of trees along roadways and our green spaces and private properties. Our Parks Foundation is asking our city government to consider joining in this annual event by sponsoring ivy awareness campaigns, encouraging residents, businesses, and neighborhoods to help fight this and control this invasive species. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Last, we have Andrew Worthington. A new face. We don't see those very often.
I can start?
Go ahead.
Okay, hello, my name is Andrew Worthington. I reside in Oregon City, born and raised here, and I've been I'm small business, grown up, born and raised in small business, and I've been building my own business as a contractor as well in the city, and I've been sort of like going to the different departments, including Clackamas County as well, and sort of trying to get to where I'm more aware of what I need to be doing to be competitive. And today, when I was at the building department in the city of Oregon City, I was suggested that maybe I should come to this meeting. I came down here as well and talked with them about like my concerns, being the youth in sort of more like the working class. It's been difficult trying to find a way to get real estate that's affordable. And I've really tried to educate myself on the different trades of what it would take for me to be able to put down roots here. And what I was really saying is like, I know that when I was a kid, I had heard of like in the state of Hawaii that they had something where it was like called the Kama'aina subdivision, and it was based on the fact that their working class kids that were growing up weren't able to afford staying in their local towns, and it created a space where like this subdivision was specifically for that town to have the ability to help support the growth of their working class. And it was just something I wanted to, I mentioned it to the building department, and then I mentioned it to the lady that works at the front desk here today, and they both just said that, hey, you know, it might be a good idea. It's tonight, come in and say something about that. And that's mainly because like I've struggled trying to find building lots in this area. And I know, I mean, I'm not trying to say that I deserve like a easy step towards anything, but I'm just saying like, I know that with my friends and different people I've grown up with, that's sort of the struggle right now, is that we are having a hard time. We want to stay local and we want to stay here, but it's very difficult for us to afford to stay here with so many of the lots having different issues with whether or not it needs a geotech, which is, I mean, obviously we need geotech, so it's nothing against that. It's that like me being able to take that step of spending that money to know whether or not that lot is worth pursuing is really difficult for me. And a lot of the lots that aren't developed are like that. There's something that's going on, as you guys know. And yeah, so that's all I was bringing forward, and I want to start becoming more involved, so.
Thank you. I might suggest that you sit down with Ms. Turway and talk about whatever the situation was in Hawaii and how that worked. 'Cause
okay.
I'm definitely interested in that sort of workforce housing is a big thing for me, and I want to see what we can do about that.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your time.
Clarifying question?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm trying to understand, and I just want to make sure I understand. Are you asking about lots that you were trying to build on as a contractor, or you're asking about workforce housing or houses that you can afford, which are kind of two different things, or maybe you're asking for both? Can you
Sort of
clarify?
mixing. I'm sort of mixing, yeah. I think that, like, really, the main thing I wanted to bring tonight was more that idea of workforce housing.
Okay.
But I sort of mixed a little bit of myself in there. It's the first time talking in front of you guys, and yeah, myself, I'm also trying to, get myself somewhere.
Sure.
Trying to start your business and.
Yeah, and put my roots down too. So,
Okay,
yeah.
I was just trying to understand
course.
exactly what you are looking for, so.
And thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Agenda okay with everybody?
I'm gonna pull from consent agenda.
That's fine.
Yes.
We can do it then. So public hearings, we have PC 19-097, first reading of ordinance number 19-1009, amending the Oregon City Municipal Code, Chapter 17.40, Historic Overlay District, Ms. Turway.
Thank you very much. So these proposed amendments to the Oregon City Municipal Code, there's no PowerPoint or anything for you tonight.
Oh.
This has been before you a couple of other hearings. So I just want to give you a brief overview of the code amendments, and then we're here to answer any questions as well. So the code amendments include clarifying competing requirements as far as administrative review. So what does administrative review mean? This code amendment clarifies that. Also, we amended the definition of new construction as it applies to Historic Review Board. And we also have an amendment to require that any changes to the Historic Review Board policies come before the City Commission through a resolution. That's a brief summary of the changes. We're here to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, so before we talk about this, I'm going to open the public hearing. We have one person testify, Mr. Nacita.
Katie's assistant can help you, Mr. Parno.
I'd like to hold off on the clock until the
Thank you.
document is reviewed.
Good. Go ahead, Mr. Nacita.
Good evening, James Nacita. I live in Oregon City. My comments at the last meeting on this topic were that I was concerned about the deletion of subsection K regarding construction of fences on historic sites, because the current Historic Review Board policy on fences was adopted, I believe, in 1987 or 88, and there's the 302 3rd Avenue issue that was before you. The fence there was from 86. And this ordinance goes back to 1985, which I entered into the record last time. So my concerns remain the same. And what I went ahead and did is for your consideration, I made my own little amendment to subsection K, which I think solves the problem in a very economical way. And that is to delete everything except what I've left undeleted and add in subsection E there in the first sentence of subsection K. What that does is essentially what staff wants to do, which is have everything in the administrative procedures in subsection E. This moves them into subsection E with those procedures. What it does, however, it makes it clear that fences, since this ordinance is from 1985 and you're not deleting it, you are sending a very clear signal that you are retaining fences as something that is subject to your jurisdiction or to HRB jurisdiction as of 1985 rather than 1988, so you can address the 303rd Avenue issue. It does create a little bit of redundancy in your municipal code, but for the security that it gives you, I think it's probably not the only place in the municipal code that's redundant in some way, and for the insurance that this gives you, I think this little bit of redundancy is acceptable. And in the minute I have left, I do want to bring to your attention that I'm a little curious as to why, when you directed staff to bring forth 302 Third Avenue for your reconsideration, it still hasn't happened. I watched the last meeting, and I remember Mr. Edgar had reminded you all about that, and I'm just very curious as to whether that is being withheld from you until you amend the code the way staff wants you to amend the code, so that piece of security will in fact be deleted from the code. So if there's no problem, table this, do 302 Third Avenue first, and then come back to this, because that's the best way to ensure that you still have this code in place to address that particular issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public testimony? And I'm going to close the public hearing and we can deliberate. Anybody?
Do you have anything?
Is there a motion?
Well, I guess I'd like to ask a question of our attorney.
Sure, go ahead.
Can you parse out, very simply, the issue that Mr. Nocita continues to bring forth to us about 1985 versus 1986 or 1983 and the property?
I'm not certain I can parse that out that well. My understanding of his main issue is that somehow the change in this code would mean that the fence that was built sometime in the mid-'80s would not be subject to review in some way. And I think that's the concern that I heard sort of underlying that issue. And I may be wrong, but that's a concern. And from my perspective, as I read through this doesn't change the criteria that have to be applied to that fence or any other fence. It just makes this work a little bit better, because the process that's currently set out in K just doesn't fit with the rest of the city's process. And all it does is say that this would apply to new development, and it would have to, any new development would have to comply with the policies or go to the Historic Review Board. And that doesn't change whether that, fence that was built in the mid-'80s is not conforming. It's not conforming whether this code is in place or the previous code is in place. If they want to justify it as new construction, it would have to comply with the policies that are in place, regardless of what happened before or after. So this is more of a procedural. It shouldn't have any impact on the substance of how that fence would be reviewed.
Okay. So I'm going to make a couple of comments. One, to the intimation that staff is somehow keeping something from the commission that is totally not true, unacceptable thought. It just doesn't happen. I set the agenda for this commission. And if there are 3 commissioners that wish to have an item forward on the agenda, they have every right to do that. But generally speaking, I thought that when we talked about this issue the last time, that we were looking at a more holistic approach to Kenema than just one at a time.
Correct.
And so I think we're trying to let staff do is kind of see how we might accomplish that in a holistic way in Kenema. So I don't see how passing this has any effect on us looking at Kenema on a more holistic level and saying, we're just going to take the right of way that we currently use and then somehow, give the rest of that to the adjoining lot owners. Is that?
I think, just to clarify, we're working on 2 things.
Okay.
One is bringing back the Adelman property on the 16th of this month. The second one, as we heard it, was this isn't the only location in the city, or in Kenema, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And so we've been working to try to identify what are options for the commission to consider to address this on a global issue rather than on a one-by-one.
So is there any necessity to bring forward the Adelman property prior to us figuring out what we're going to do with the rest of Kenema?
We were asked to. That's the necessity, was we were directed by the commission to bring it back. We were bringing it back on the 16th.
Well, do we still agree with that?
Is anything changing? Or you're just giving us more time to consider?
We were directed by the commission to bring it back. We had approved.
Well, I don't know. I just think rather than doing these piecemeal, including the 302 property, that we should just let the staff figure out how we're going to address KEMA on a holistic level, and then bring it to us, and then we can move forward and just table the 302 until we have that information. That would be my plan.
So refreshing my, Mr. was refreshing my, so we brought the 302 property forward. The commission authorized us to issue the right-of-way permit. We were then asked to bring it back based on
historic
information related to the fence. So that's what we've been working on to bring back on the 16th at the direction of the commission. So we're happy to do whatever we want. So we've got these two projects kind of going on concurrently.
So we've already ruled on the intrusion into the right-of-way. That's done.
You've issued a right-of-way.
In this specific.
You've approved the issuance of a
Right,
right-of-way.
so all that remains is the historic height of the fence and what was in effect at that time. And is the property owner's property owner in violation?
What is
clarify for me what
is
remains.
the issue? Yeah.
Sure. We started a memo, it's not finalized, about it. The last commission meeting, from my recollection is what prompted you to bring it back was concerns that were identified about the initial construction of the fence and the question of if it was constructed legally. And from my understanding of the commission, that you wanted to bring back the right-of-way permit to see if that decision made any bearing on if you want to revoke the right-of-way permit or not. So, in other words, if it was or wasn't constructed legally, you have the authority to make whatever decision and revoke or require conditions to be placed on the right-of-way permit that you had already issued or authorized. So in the memo, it describes about, it talks about what the requirements were when it was constructed, and then there's also some options for moving forward, which do include more global options as well.
I just don't see how we're going to judge about something that we have no personal knowledge of, the timelines, any of that. All of that is pretty much ancient history at this point. We've already issued a right-of-way permit. I don't see a necessity to bring it back, but I will leave that up to the commission.
I don't see a necessity to bring back the right-of-way permit. I think there is some issue as to the timing on the law in effect at the time the fence was constructed. We've got conflicting information where we've got one memo, and I don't know the years exactly, 88 comes to mind, and Mr. Nacita's memo says that precedes that. So then the question would be, separate from the right-of-way issue, is did the 6-foot fence violate the law in effect at that time? That's the only issue that's still outstanding.
But how do we judge that? Because, you know, you're going to have the property owner who says one thing and these other people who say something else. There's no record in the city because, you know, back then we didn't do that kind of stuff. I just don't know how we judge that.
Well, I think the contention was that the thing was constructed after 88, whereas Mr. Nacita's memo, I believe, predates that to, I believe, 85, and I'm just doing all this from memory.
The ordinance is 85.
Okay, thank you.
If you'd like to bring it back on the 16th, we can give you more details about this and what it means to make the decision if it's legal or not, which is a land use decision and all the procedures related to that.
And the only issue we'd be dealing with is that does the height of the fence violate the ordinances in effect at the time it was constructed?
No, the issue is if the city commission would like to revoke the right-of-way permit that was issued, and you can revoke it based on whatever rationale you would like.
See, I didn't understand that as the issue. I thought that matter was already decided.
Well, it has been decided whether we want to revoke it or not, and I have no, again, I think We need to come back to a holistic way of looking at Kenema as a whole. And so right now, I say we let the right-of-way permit stand until staff has had an opportunity to bring us back to a process where we can do that holistic look at Kenema.
Because we can revoke it at any time anyway.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
So what's the urgency?
The second issue to me is the matter remained to be decided. And then the question was showing proof that what was in effect and what was in effect when the fence was built. The right-of-way thing to me is put to bed, it's done. Unless one wanted to revoke it, which we're gonna take a holistic approach anyhow to the entire region. So I don't wanna deal with that.
Well, and I don't see, if as we go through the process of looking at Kenema holistically, we decide that, something needs to happen with that fence, then we'll have the opportunity to do that at that time.
It stood this long, I don't see an urgency in doing it.
Right. Okay, you have a...
So my understanding is that we'll be bringing back with a discussion about how to look at how to address encroachments and legal or illegal or non-conforming structures, fences, whatever, in the right-of-way in Kenema.
Right.
Of which Adelman's is an example.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that was easy.
Hold on, we still got the... Yeah.
Yes.
Can I have a motion on the issue at hand?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 19-1009.
Mr. Says second.
Second.
Mr. Gebeitman.
Ordinance number 19-1009, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City amending the Oregon City Municipal Code, Title 17.40, Historic Overlay District.
Call a roll.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Dan Holliday.
Aye. So moving on, we have the consent agenda. Apparently Commissioner Lyle Smith has something to pull.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Holliday, Mayor Holliday. I would like to pull, let me see what number it is, the Friends of Trees.
Friends of Trees.
8B, personal service
8B,
agreement.
okay. Ms. Turway?
Yes, we are proposing a personal service contract for Friends of Trees. It is a 2-year duration, and we utilize Friends of Trees to use our tree mitigation money to do tree plantings throughout the city.
Any question?
Yes. So first I'd like to say I used Friends of Trees a couple of years ago, and they were wonderful. It was a great service. They planted trees, and I didn't have to do it, and I loved that. And they were great trees for $35, and it was a wonderful program. So I support the program. I want to put that out there. My question is, in your staff report and in the scope for the contractor, it says in the first paragraph, the focus of this project is to increase canopy coverage along public rights-of-way and in residential yards in select neighborhoods within Oregon City. Can you expand on that of select neighborhoods? How are they picking neighborhoods? And I guess I'm hoping that this is a equitable offering to everybody in our city, but I looked for where it might be clarified in their scope and elsewhere, and I didn't have any of that information, but it was repeated multiple times, the word select neighborhoods, so I thought maybe you could provide.
Good question.
Yeah.
We started this program with smaller neighborhoods. So we started actually in McLaughlin, and then we expanded to Rivercrest and Barclay Hills, and we've been expanding over time. The reason why it was kept to smaller neighborhoods at first was so we could delineate where the public right-of-way is in a planter strip, and then also because a large part of this is for Friends of Trees to go door knocking and to get people to join the program, and so there wasn't enough capacity to go throughout the whole city. Since then, we've been having a lot of conversations about expanding it into further places throughout the city, but there is options in here to do special programs. So like, for example, this year we did a program, we worked with Clackamas Community College, and there was Russian-speaking students, and so we sponsored one tree planting for them to plant, I think, 2 trees as a part of a ceremony and learn more about planting of trees. So there are options to do other plantings. The problem was really more a physical problem of getting volunteers to walk around to all the neighborhoods, and also getting, when you have the day of the tree planting event, they have to do routes, and it's easier when they're grouped together. But we've been working with them to expand it over time, so it has been increasing throughout neighborhoods in Oregon City.
Okay, I guess I never want to support a program that is only servicing 3 or 4 neighborhoods out of, 12 or 14 neighborhoods. And so if there's a way to make sure that maybe one year they don't go to McLaughlin, or they don't go to Rivercrest, or my neighborhood, which is Gaffney Lane, and go to a neighborhood that they haven't visited before, just to make sure that all areas of our city is benefiting from this. I think it's a great program, but I want all of our neighborhoods to benefit.
That's a good point. The other thing that's really exciting about this contract that we haven't done before, which was the code changes allowed us to do, is to use some of the money for for education. And so in here you'll see an example of tree pruning classes, and that is certainly a place where we can take to other neighborhoods where we traditionally don't do a lot of plantings.
And then my final comment is on the sole source contract. I agree, and I understand why you're doing a sole source contract. And I appreciate the memo that you had, because it saved me from asking you probably questions about it. So at this point, I would just have a recommendation that maybe the next biennium, we actually do the RFP versus the sole source. It will have been 5 years since the last solicitation, and that it just is more transparent and fair and gives everybody an equitable shot at providing a service for the city. So I think once every 5 years, I don't mind sole source, but I just want to make sure that we at least provide the opportunity. I know you said you looked, and I trust you, and so I like I said, I think it's fine, and I appreciate the memo about it. I would just encourage you that once every 5 years, at least go out publicly to solicit for other contractors. That's it.
And a final comment from me. Door knocking seems to be the most inefficient way of reaching people these days. So maybe you could partner with Kristen and Joanne Pat McCoy, who runs Oregon Chat on Facebook, to put that solicitation out. Here's what you can do. This is what it'll cost you. We can plant a tree in your space or whatever, and they'll let people sign up instead of just going around knocking on doors. Just a suggestion. So with that, can we proceed with the consent agenda?
Can for me.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Dan Holliday.
Aye. Then we're adjourned, and we will proceed directly into a work session of the City Commission for Wednesday, October 29th. It's about 7:40 p.m.
Could you give me just a minute to change agendas real quick?
Sure.
5-minute break or so?
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
We'll take 5 minutes.